Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Grand Tactician The Civil War, where we're playing the Confederate career mode. Last episode we attacked the Union army with overwhelming force, still we were not able to achieve victory. Our brigade suffered massive casualties and it looks like our rebellion is a doomed adventure. But we are still kicking, so let's find out what we can do next. We can see that our forces are withdrawing. I guess we're going to try to slip back into the Shenandoah Valley. And if we take a look south, we can see that the enemy is still besieging this fort close to Fredericksburg. We have Sibley's division over there with 7,000 soldiers, and it looks like the Union 3rd Division only has about 5,000 men ready. Further to the south, we can see that the 1st Division is parked close to Staunton. So far they have not advanced further into the city. And our political ready was successful. We now have a bunch more political prestige. That is unfortunately still not enough to overtake the command of the Army of the Potomac. We could in theory ask to take command of Sibley's division in the Army of the Shenandoah. This would cost 835 prestige and it would take another 55 prestige to transfer down to this unit. None of these units have particularly good weapons, but I think this might be the way forward for us. I'm going to ask to be transferred to this unit. And now we are trying to take command. And after a few small changes, we now have our division ready. We are going to field 3 infantry brigades and 1 designated artillery brigade. This way we should hopefully have a lot of control over the battlefield. But it looks like we only have a fraction of our force ready to fight, and the remaining units need a little bit more time until they are able to move. Let's hope our soldiers arrive just in time so that we can kick back the 3rd Division that is currently besieging the Kiev garrison. And because our horse was shot down in the last engagement, we need a new warhorse. I am once more going to buy a racehorse. And we can now also throw a little party to make sure that we get some of our invested prestige back. And now it is time to wait until we finally have enough soldiers present on the field. Currently we only have 1030 soldiers present for duty. So let's hope that this fort is going to hold until our reinforcements arrive. If we look to the north, we can see that there is another engagement with the federal forces. And it looks like the army of Shenandoah was routed near Aldi. It is very good then that we decided to bail out before we would get caught in another costly defeat. We can see that the Union forces are now rapidly advancing. And we still only have 2,700 soldiers ready for duty. In Trans-Mississippi Theater news, there was a battle fought at Wilson's Creek, and luckily our side was victorious. The Western Army is unable to pursue. And we can see that apparently more of our soldiers are retreating in the area of Winchester. And as the cotton trade slows down, the demand in Europe is increasing, leading to record high prices in cotton. And we can see that over here more of our forces are on the retreat. And in the Battle of Akia Landing, the enemy has suffered 18 total casualties, while our garrison had to capitulate. This fort is now on the Union side, and we are getting chased deeper and deeper into the south. Still, we only have 2,800 soldiers available, not enough to contest the 4,900 soldiers of the 3rd Division. I was hoping we had more soldiers present already. The Army of the Potomac is in the area, maybe they want to link up with us. And we can see that the Army of the Shenandoah is limping back closer to the Army of the Northwest. Over here the Union forces are now sitting between our lines. And it looks like the federal forces are trying to gather their forces once more around Washington. And if we are especially unlucky, we will have to first siege the Fort Akia Landing garrison down before we actually can get into contact with the 3rd Division. But I want to fight them as soon as possible before the enemy can get even more reinforcements. In approximately 3 days we are going to receive reinforcements from the 10th South Carolina and the 11th South Carolina. And in 13 more days even more men are going to follow. But I think once the 1st Georgia Cavalry is arriving in 8 days, we will have to risk it and attack the enemy heads on. A few more days has passed and we have received reinforcements, and we can see that the 2nd Division has fallen back to Manassas Junction. It also looks like we are trying to attack the enemy alongside Staunton. Let's hope this time we are going to be victorious, and we have now also received our reinforcements. I try to keep my men ready so that we can attack at first dawn and drive back the 3rd Division. They now have over 6,000 soldiers present on the battlefield, while we only have 5,700 mostly green forces. And now we can see that our men are moving. We should be in contact with the enemy roughly at around 6 or 7 o'clock, unless we have to contest this garrison. And there seems to be an escalation thanks to our political viewpoints. Our political views are those of a proper fire eater, and tensions rise whenever you're involved in political meetings. Recently you have managed to team up with many like-minded individuals. This group has escalated the political discourse so far that different factions within the government are beginning to turn against one another, to a point where national unity is compromised. While I do not think that this is valued at all, it is simply a fact that we are correct and those who oppose us are wrong. And we are now about to get into contact with the enemy, and it looks like they are actually falling back. Finally! And there have been reports of a glorious victory at Waynesboro Bridge. The Department of Pennsylvania is fleeing in the panic, and the support for the Yankee cause wavers. Now, we know that the 3rd Division is part of the Army of Pennsylvania, but we do not know if this is the victory that was talked about here. We can see over here that the 2nd Division and Lee's Division are in contact. But it looks like Lee has no chance in this engagement. But he disengages before it takes even more casualties, and we can see that Union forces are advancing. And we have been informed that another fort has fallen. There was a disaster at Fitzhugh and Beckham has surrendered. It looks like the Union forces are once more focusing on the Army of the Potomac. And around Williamsburg there was another disaster for our armies. The Army of the Peninsula is now fleeing in a panic. Meaning that not only our front line is collapsing, but also our rear line. The Department of Virginia has over 5,200 soldiers in the area, and I wonder if it would be wise to send our forces down to deal with them, or if we should stay in the north and try to hope to aid our comrades. Unfortunately, I do not think that we can actually reach the 3rd Division and take back Manassas Junction before the Union Army sends in more reinforcements. The 4th Division is in the area together with the entirety of the Army of the Northwest, and with that we have no chance of winning. Let's hope instead that we might be able to siege back this fort. If we're successful here, we can finally get a little bit of breathing room around Fredericksburg, and then maybe drive with those Yankees back into the sea. So let's hope our soldiers are going to be successful. We have over 5,700 soldiers, but only 10 artillery pieces. And we do not know exactly what this garrison brings to the field. They only have 58 soldiers, but they might have much better artillery than we do. If possible, I want our soldiers to charge to make sure that we are not getting trapped in a long siege. And there was a disaster at Mount Jackson. Lee's division is fleeing in a panic, and it looks like the Federals are advancing more and more. And with that, the Shenandoah campaign for the Union was an absolute success. Winchester has fallen and we have lost our breadbasket. This is not a good year for the Confederacy. We can see still more fighting is happening to the northwest, and the Union armies are now hunting our soldiers down further to the north. And over here, the Army of the Peninsula is retreating into Richmond. and at Grafton, Porterfield's division is fleeing in a panic. So far in this siege we have suffered 6 casualties, while the enemy has suffered none, but it looks like the tide is turning towards us, and I hope that we can soon achieve a victory that we so much need. Over here we can see that the 2nd division is advancing. They have over 11,000 soldiers and should be stronger than most of our armies that we can still field. It looks like they are marching straight toward the enemy, but with all these forces present, they should or might be able to defeat our advancing enemies. And we still have an entire army over here. We have Hugger's division with over 6,700 soldiers on paper that should be able to attack the enemy, but they are trying to embark on a ship and are therefore completely blocked by the Union naval blockade. We have a logistician in our company and he says that our units are not yet ready. We are going to give him $250 to make sure that he is going to improve our logistic supplies. This should hopefully make our soldiers more effective on the field. And we can see that down here it doesn't look like any of our forces were actually able to fight the approaching enemy, meaning that Joseph E. Johnston is fighting with 8,600 soldiers against over 9,000 soldiers of Major General William H. Kine. Hopefully Johnston is going to be strong enough, but if the track record holds that we have set so far, this is going to be another defeat. And in this siege we have already taken 42 casualties while the enemy only suffered 2. And over here the army of Potomac is once more in action. They're fighting against over 14,600 Federalists, but so far the casualties have been more or less even. And as we have guessed previously, Johnston wasn't able to defeat the enemy. There was a disaster at Waynesboro Bridge and the army of the Shenandoah is fleeing in a panic. At this point I wonder why the entirety of the Union army is not marching forward and simply capturing Richmond. We have an entire Union army, the Department of Virginia, right in front of our doorstep that could march in unopposed. We in the meantime are still stuck on this siege, but it looks like we are getting closer and closer to winning it. And over here the army of the Potomac is, for some miraculous reason, still holding back the enemy. And to make matters worse, the Union has extended its contracts to 3 years, meaning that new regiments are going to be formed in the north and we have a lot more Yankees to fight very soon. And we have gained a new companion. A very eager sergeant has reported for duty in your unit. You get along great and soon have a good relationship, where he makes sure you don't do anything stupid and the men will have more than enough drill to keep them away from wandering. He is looked up and trusted by the men, so his presence increases your leadership. And we desperately need someone who is skilled with the drilling of these soldiers. So let's make sure that he helps us with the exercises. We can see that over here the 2nd division is once more attacking our boys. The army of the Shenandoah was just in combat, and over here more parts of the army of the Northwest are soon going to be slapped around as well. We have an entire Union army that is not moving. If I'm not mistaken, it is the army of occupation under McClellan. And I wonder when the army of the Potomac is beginning to fall back. They have suffered over 990 casualties so far, but they inflicted over 1,000 onto the enemy. And finally we have achieved a glorious victory at Fort Aquia Landing. Hooker has surrendered, but we have sustained casualties of 115 soldiers, with 17 men killed and 19 missing. But let's now make sure that we are going to use this breathing ground and try to get our soldiers to the south. We can see that the Department of Virginia is in the area with over 5,000 soldiers, meaning that our 7,500 men heavily outnumber our enemy. And we have also achieved our first perk. And as much as I want to get sappers and miners, as it would make sure that we can siege down enemy forts quicker, I think I'm going to go with the ambulance corps to make sure that our soldiers stay alive. For now, I want our soldiers to move back, and we are going to use the railroad. We are going to gather at White House, and from there we are going to march onto our enemy. This way we should be able to quickly redeploy our forces, and then we should be able to get in contact with our foes. And we have now once more been informed that the Shenandoah campaign for the Union was a success. I guess partially they have lost the valley as some of our forces try to fight in the area. But that barely matters now. We can see that more enemy forces are advancing on the army of the Shenandoah, and our soldiers have arrived at White House. We have 1,500 soldiers in the area. Let's push them forward and try to drive back the enemy. And at Port Republic, the army of the Shenandoah was once more defeated. They are fleeing further and further from the advancing federal forces. And now we are finally in combat under our very own personal command. We are taking the Department of Virginia under command of Benjamin Butler, who has about 5,240 infantry and 8 guns. Gentlemen, today is September 12, 1861. Our scouts report that the enemy is near Williamsburg, Virginia, and our army is to prepare for battle. We are facing the Department of Virginia under command of Benjamin E. Butler with strengths of some 5,000 men and 8 guns. The enemy army is green and the morale is reported to be confident. Reports indicate their supply situation is outstanding, and the supply state of our army is outstanding as well. We are fighting an offensive battle, and we can see that our point of interest is this crossroad down here close to Grove Ward. Our men are more or less organized and the battle can begin. We are going to position our artillery in the rear while our infantry is going to take the center. We already have 13 o'clock, so I doubt that we are going to arrive today. But our soldiers are making very good progress on the march. We can see that the enemy has deployed skirmishers up front. We have the 1st Vermont, the 2nd New York and the 1st New York on the enemy left flank. And they have the 9th New York, 4th New York, 7th New York and 5th New York on the right. They are fielding the, I guess, B battery of the 2nd US Artillery and the L battery of the 2nd US Artillery. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And we can see that the first parts of our units are soon going to arrive. Let's hope the enemy allows us to organize after we have arrived on the field, so that we are not immediately having to attack them. Enemy artillery fire is starting to set in. Let's send some skirmishers from our men from Florida and from Virginia out. And we will have to wait until the rest of our forces have arrived. After them, I want our largest brigade to move up over here, while we send our 2nd largest brigade on the enemy flank. With that, we should have the manpower necessary to overwhelm our enemy. But this of course only works if our artillery support comes up just in time. And of course the 6th Louisiana also needs to arrive on the field. The 1st Texas battery apparently is really slowing us down here. Okay, it looks like our artillery is finally coming up. We now have 18 o'clock, meaning that we are most likely unable to move for today. But still, enemy fire has not caused a single casualty. Our guns are now setting up. They are unable to reach the enemy, but once we are approaching, we are able to open fire. Nightfall is about to set in, but all of our soldiers are present on the field now. Let's get our men just a little bit forward so that we are prepared for the day of fighting tomorrow. Enemy fire might become more accurate now as we are getting closer and closer to the enemy lines. And I want our artillery to be positioned all the way over here. This way we should have an option to shell the enemy without blocking them with our infantry, but we should also be able to easily support our guns. Let's get these boys forward just a little bit more. And over here I wish I could order these guys to get in one single line, because the regiments are standing behind each other. Over here I want to send out some skirmishers wherever possible. And our cavalry can move out further than the rest of the units. I want Churchill's detachment to get ready together with the Jenkins detachment, meaning that we can further exploit the enemy gaps on the flank. Our skirmishers are now getting in contact with the enemy. I'm going to slow down time for the moment. Unfortunately, the enemy should have far better weapons than we do. And we can see that enemy regiments are pulling in. This is working a lot better than previously expected. Well then, let's get our boys forward. These skirmishers I want on these positions on our side. Over here the men can move forward. And our guns are almost in position to shell the enemy from the flank. Very good, very good. Let's hope that our forces over here are arriving in time. And we can see that Manny's detachment is combating the enemy. Over here our other soldiers have also opened fire. And I want Churchill's detachment to rush out to hit the enemy in the rear. And finally we are going to receive the messenger ordering these soldiers forward. Jenkins detachment, move up. These cavalrymen can also move up. And over this side the 1st Texas battery is setting up. They are now getting ready to open fire. They just need to get a little bit of positioning and then they can start shelling the enemy. Let's get the rest of our forces forward. Let's hope that the enemy do not have too many rifled muskets. And let's also get our divisional command forward. Over here these men still need their sweet time. And it looks like we are able to hit the 1st Vermont in the flank. So far not many casualties have been caused, meaning that the morale shock is still quite low. Let's get Jenkins' men forward to get into the rear of the enemy. Over here I want these soldiers to rush out as well. We are now on the flank of our opposing forces. These men need to hurry up though. And over here the men from South Carolina need to get closer to hit the enemy. So far I'm not engaging the entire center of the enemy because I want to keep them blocked up as much as possible to give these soldiers more time to arrive on the position. I want the 6th Virginia battery to focus further on the center of the enemy force. Our howitzers, however, can focus further on the 1st Vermont. Over here the 1st group of our skirmishers is falling back and we can see that enemy units are pulling up. Garland Jr.'s detachment is also about to be driven away. Let's send the 15th Virginia forward. And it now looks like we have to send the 1st Florida forward on Walker's detachment. And over here more of our forces are arriving on the enemy flank. Very good, very good. The rest of our forces are starting to cross. Let's make sure that our commanders keep up the pace. And let's send the 11th South Carolina forward. Carr's detachment is about to be driven away. Garland Jr. is about to fall back. This is absolutely acceptable. Hawkins' detachment needs to be taken under fire. 1st Florida already suffered 16 casualties, I guess from a mix of artillery and infantry fire. And we need to order our soldiers not to use the cold steel. Let's get them forward a little bit to hit the 1st Vermont. That we are able to engage from multiple sides. We have a wavering unit of skirmishers. Okay, for a moment I thought this would be our frontline forces. Luckily not. But unfortunately the day has ended. The next day of fighting can begin. During the night our soldiers have retreated just a little bit. We do not know where the enemy might have moved. But let's hope that the enemy has stayed where they were previously, so that this fight can be an easy victory for us. Okay, Union forces have withdrawn a little bit, but it looks like they have opened up their rear for our 2nd Brigade. Over here our soldiers are clashing with the enemy skirmish line. And down here we will have to send the 19th and the 19th Georgia and the 11th South Carolina forward to make sure that the front of the enemy is still focusing on this position. Our guns can open up on the enemy, but I do not want them to fire on the enemy detachments. I want them to focus on the enemy infantry line. And if possible on the enemy guns. We are sending our men forward. We are about to hit the 9th New York in the flank and the 2nd US artillery in the rear. And now we need to drive back these skirmishers before the enemy can actually react to our movement. Skirmishers, if possible, I want them out. Doesn't look like it is possible. Very well then, let's get the boys moving. Multiple infantry detachments are coming up. Let's send our cavalry in for a small firing line. Yes, we're delivering some good fire. These skirmishers should be driven away in no time. Over here they are holding us back quite well, but they should also flee soon. And these soldiers have not yet taken a single casualty, but it looks like the enemy artillery is rotating around. We need to hurry up. Our guns are hitting the enemy where they should. Very good. They're hitting a big pile of the enemy forces. And it looks like our skirmishing detachments were sent to the far edge of the battlefield and are now on the flank of the enemy. Very good. Hawkins' detachment is falling back. We are now taking artillery fire. Let's hope Woodbury is following soon so that we can hit those guns. Let's try to get some men forward. And simply hope that we can ignore these skirmishers. First line of enemy skirmishers has been driven away. We can almost connect with the enemy main line. And over here there's the 9th New York routed. The 1st Union regiment that we have defeated in this day of fighting. 7th New York is also standing there with their flank exposed. Let's get the men forward. And 6th Louisiana needs to hold out until we can send our reinforcements forward. Walker's detachment and Shaler's detachment, my apologies, are still standing strong on the battlefield, but we are trying to hit them. Over here we are hitting the 1st Vermont in the flank. And we are now also about to make contact with the 2nd New York. That are apparently facing the rear. No, they are facing our skirmish line. I was hoping they would face to the north. 6th Louisiana took 28 casualties, but there is the 1st Florida coming up. Very good. We are about to encircle the Union lines. Let's get the 1st Texas battery forward. The same goes with the 6th Virginia battery. And the 1st Washington also needs to move forward over the street. This way we are hopefully able to still hit the enemy while our forces are advancing. Our skirmishers are doing a good job. They are not going to be able to hold this flank for a long time, but they are delivering a good amount of fire. 2nd US artillery took 4 casualties but inflicted 43 on us. And over here it looks like these men are not shooting. Let's get them forward just a little bit so that they can focus on the 4th New York. And over here we are able to hit more and more of the enemy line. Very good. Enemy artillery is about to be defeated. Let's send our soldiers on the center. 19th Georgia, I want to focus on the enemy flank together with the 9th Georgia. That we have to send slightly around the enemy line. Artillery is coming up, but it is coming up slowly. These guns can open fire where they stand. They have a good position. 1st Washington still needs to advance though. 6th Louisiana is taking 43 casualties. They are unstable. No, now they have routed. 2nd US, for an inexperienced unit, is holding very strong. They are getting rear flanked, but not yet broke. Sixth Alabama with their 360 soldiers are now getting attacked by multiple strong enemy regiments. These artillery pieces are still holding us back, and for some reason they are simply not dropping. 11th South Carolina is allegedly outflanked by these guns. Let's try to get the 10th South Carolina forward. And we are going to order a charge with the 1st Florida. But these artillery pieces simply have to go. 10th Georgia is coming up over here. Once they're in position, they should be able to hit the 1st New York in the flank. Very good. And I want our soldiers from the 1st Georgia on the 1st Vermont. We have routed enemy artillery. Let's try to capture some of their guns and open fire. Now, these gentlemen need to get over here while the rest of our forces start to push further onto the enemy. First Florida is broken. I do not know from who or why. They only took 67 casualties. They had the best opportunity to achieve a lot of glory today. Let's simply hope that our numerical superiority is now going to be strong enough. The Jenkins detachment over here has gathered their courage. They're able to fire again. Our artillery line is also still able to hit. Very nice indeed. We are looking at a minor victory so far. We have taken 370 casualties, however. The enemy only suffered 275. 20th Georgia is coming up. We are moving on the enemy flank. Let's hope that the 1st Florida and the 6th Louisiana are soon going to gather their courage. 6th Alabama is about to be driven away, and I cannot blame them. Yet they will give us as much time as possible. 1st Georgia, dismount. 1st New York is wavering. We are outflanking multiple enemy units. Let's hope their morale quickly breaks. 4th New York is now getting flanked. This situation is getting tense. It looks like our guns can still hit the enemy. These guns can't. Let's get the boys forward. Garland, get back in the fight. Donaldson, closer to the main line. And Jenkins detachment is hitting the 2nd New York in the flank. Very good. There the 1st is running away, but our 6th Alabama has also decided to flee. 2nd US battery has taken 9 casualties. Let's focus some of our interest on them. Their canister fire can easily shred our lines. 11th South Carolina has already taken over 100 casualties. But over here we are driving away the 2nd New York. Very good. It looks like the Union lines are finally starting to collapse. We can see more and more units routing. The 4th New York isn't looking good. The 1st Vermont is falling back. But we have already suffered over 500 casualties. Let's hope all of that is going to be worth it. 1st South Carolina ran away. I guess the enemy artillery fire was too much. But the enemy is now on the retreat. Come on, man, hit them with everything you got. Now it is payback time. Gentlemen, rush in. I want those guns silent. Very good. Now you need to shift on the 7th New York. And this should be the last operational unit dealt with. Oh, and please, pretty please, if you could capture enemy artillery. This would be very good. We do not have a lot of those pieces lying around. And there we have it, our first victory that was completely under our command. The Union forces had over 5,300 soldiers present on the battlefield, but they have taken 596 casualties. We were also able to steal all of their artillery. On our side we had 7,500 soldiers and we took 599 casualties ourselves. And I have to say, it feels really good to finally hit the enemy instead of constantly receiving blows. After our victory at Williamsburg, the Department of Virginia is fleeing in a panic. Colonel Maney loses face and Colonel Hawkins loses face as well. And from the 596 casualties we have inflicted, 78 men were killed and 139 men were captured. From our 599 casualties we have sustained 125 killed and 154 missing. But we were also able to capture 269 rifles and 3 artillery pieces from the battlefield. And now we once more have to take a look on the strategy board. We can see that right now the Union Army fields over 67,000 soldiers, while we can only bring 41,000 men to the field. We also had over 22,900 casualties, while the enemy only had 17,100. The Federal forces hold a significant advantage over our side, and there's only so much that we can do to stop their advance. But one thing that we can do is to defeat the enemy on the peninsula. If we are really lucky, we might be able to push back the enemy into the sea. Everywhere else, the Union forces are a lot stronger than ours. And we can see that right now the 2nd Division, with over 11,000 soldiers, is standing in Port Republic. Up north, the Army of the Potomac is still fighting, but they have sustained over 1,200 casualties, the same amount as our enemy has. But we only have 8,300 soldiers in this army, meaning that this looks like it could become our next major defeat. And if the Union forces around Manassas Junction, Port Tobacco and Washington would start moving, they could simply hop on the railroad and reach Richmond in no time, because we have absolutely no option to stop them. But this has to be it for now. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and until we meet again, I wish you all a great time.